But I feel like a lot of people actually got divorced or were separated or broke up in 2022 more than got together.
Yeah.
Do you notice that?
I kind of see what you're saying, and I see like more positive transits in 2023 than 2022, just
Me
personally.
too. Yeah.
So
Especially in those.
I think we're live, right?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. So yeah, today I'm joined with my good friend Sara Ashley here.
Like a lot of people
Oh wait,
actually.
sorry, let me turn that off.
It always does that to me
Okay.
too.
Yeah, yeah. So let me start over. I'm with my good friend Sara Ashley here. She is a really talented astrologer, and both me and her, we're going to be giving our forecast for the year coming up in 2023. This is going to be a combination of analyzing geopolitical events that we can look at and looking at the patterns of the stars too, and all that good stuff, and combining our knowledge together, and a little bit of numerology thrown in there as well, just for fun. So, Sara, we were talking a little bit before I hit the live stream button that we seem to have sort of that amazingly the same sort of idea for 2023, where I was telling you like wokeism, this idea is losing traction because it can only really exist in a decadent society. But as people start losing money and they like are struggling to pay for their heating bills, it's like people are going to be focusing on real issues. And I feel like we're going to see that begin in 2023. Is that what you're feeling?
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling with, we have this North Node in Taurus. We have it there until July, until the nodes switch from Aries and Libra. So right now, we're still in the North Node with Taurus, South Node Scorpio, and we have Uranus with Taurus, and Taurus is all about natural resources. So, last year I was saying, once the North Node goes into Taurus, we're going to have a lot of disruptions with our resources, with natural gas, with lumber, and lo and behold, it happened. So you're right. A lot of people don't have what they need. So we don't have the same privilege anymore. So you have this radicalism on both sides, on the right and the left, starting to return to center. So I see a lot more people come to more rational.
That's interesting you say that, because I do see people returning to center, but also remember, like in the Kabbalion, the rule of the pendulum, and in the United States and in the West, it's gone super far to the left. And I believe that pendulum is coming all the way back, and we're going to see like super like far right things starting to rise. So the United States is going to be this like weird mixture of like LGBT rainbow flags and like a far right Christian Reich like settling into place. I think it's going to be a really interesting combo we'll be seeing.
I think Margaret Atwood got it right from The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know if you've read that book before.
Yes, yeah.
To be honest with you, I've never seen the show. I refuse to watch the show. And it's not because I'm against television. It's just because I feel like it's probably going to ruin the book. But, she was talking about this in her book about how people would go from one extreme to the other. And you're completely right on that. And a lot of these dystopian novels have some truth in them. Most writers have 12th house placements, especially 12th house Mercury. It doesn't matter what sign it's in. The 12th house Mercury is channeling the future, elements of the future. So we do have some extreme right-wing people out there right now. And of course, do they have some ideas that are valid? Yes. But is their approach valid? No, absolutely not. I mean, I had on my YouTube, I don't want to get too far off course, but my YouTube popped up Matt Walsh. And I think we all know who Matt Walsh is. Probably all your viewers are familiar with him. And he had this video about this country music star who was getting a divorce. And he was like admonishing her for getting a divorce. And I was like, all right, dude, like this is getting too radical. This is getting too radical. Like you can't get a divorce anymore. Like, what is this now? Like we're getting into, 1930s type of territory. And this is not going to attract women, and it's not going to attract young people at all.
Yeah, I agree. Cause I do kind of resonate towards like people that are considered like alt-right by the mainstream, but then they do say things like that where they like bash divorce, where I'm like, okay, there's certain situations you need divorce. I'm also, I'm like on the fence between like pro-life and pro-choice. That's not a big deal for me, I guess, even though maybe it should. And it's
Right.
like I see a lot of these like all right people like really like bash women, which is funny if as a joke, but then I feel like it's like you got to like bring them in a little bit more. Like, come
Yeah,
on.
rein it
Yeah.
in, exactly.
Right.
And also, I think with like, I don't want to get too far, of course, but like with the abortion issue, a lot of it is we're talking about like having this privilege, okay? Like, and that's on both sides of the spectrum. The privilege of not having any hardship in your life that would, say, okay, like this person can't have this other child for whatever reason. And we're not going to get into that whole entire debate. I don't approve of abortion as just a form of birth control, but there
Yeah.
are some instances where I'm like, yeah, I get that. I get why she had
Yeah.
that
Like
abortion.
common sense, like pro-choice if there's extreme circumstances happening with their health at risk or like, the R word and stuff.
Right,
So,
right, 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 right,
but
right.
we shouldn't focus on that. I want to get more
Yes.
into the predictions here. So yeah, there's just a lot of interesting happenings. For example, like with Russia invading Ukraine, Russia is basically showing the world stage, like, hey, we have this idea of NATO being the world police, yet it's been about a year and they still have not directly intervened. And I think like countries like China and Iran are taking note of this. Like, whoa, we can actually
Mhm.
probably get away with more than we thought we could. And
Yeah.
not only that is happening, but I'm just seeing like a lot of rebellion taking place. Like in the Netherlands,
Mhm.
the farmers are rebelling because the country's saying only large corporations can grow food. In China, there's a Chinese nationalist party that's taking
Yes.
over because of their
Yes.
draconian lockdowns. So
Yes.
just like the
Exactly.
energy of like revolution is really palpable to me. It's in
Yeah.
the air right now.
Yes.
Whether that
Yep.
be physical or spiritual, I feel like that's what's on people's mind right now.
100%. Did you see Peru as well? How they're
Yes,
having
Peru. I've been seeing the videos there. It looks wild.
Yeah, and they've had the most draconian lockdowns in all of South America as well, which surprised me. It actually surprised me because it's as far as I was concerned, they were a very free and open society prior to the virus. But I'm not a geopolitical expert when it comes to South American politics. But as
Right.
far as I can tell, because I did know people who live there is teachers, who worked overseas and whatnot. But yeah, there's a lot of revolutions. I want to talk about that. I do want to
Yeah.
talk about that. So we're going to skip around here, guys. Everyone who's watching, I'm not going to go in chronological order if that's okay with you, Brett.
Yeah. Go for
Yes,
it.
the topics come up. So remember Julius Caesar, beware the Ides of March. Beware the Ides of March. Well, we're going to have to beware the Ides of March because March 12th, Jupiter in Aries. So Jupiter just re-entered Aries yesterday. So Aries is that god of war. It's that Mars energy. Jupiter expands, okay? And it's going to conjunct Chiron. Chiron is our wounds. It's those wounds from our childhood. All right. So how is this going to affect us on a global scale? I think there's going to be a violent incident, multiple violent, large scale, not small scale incidents around that time. Do I feel like it's going to be in the United States? No, I don't. But do I think we're going to get involved geopolitically? Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reason why is around that time, Pluto is going to go back into Capricorn. Okay. So Pluto is going to ingress into the sign of Aquarius starting in March. But in May, it's going to retrograde. Okay. So I think between March and May, this will escalate and the United States will push themselves into some kind of geopolitical circumstance because let's face it, our country is not doing very well right now. The war machine needs the money. The military industrial complex has been jonesing, chomping at the bit for some money. I don't know how you feel about this. What have you been seeing with this?
Yeah, a part of me is a little bit surprised that there hasn't been even more NATO involvement than there already has been. Just looking at their track record, but I just think there's so much fatigue from United States citizens when it comes to like intervening in other countries, and I think that's playing a factor in us not going like full on frontal war right now.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I agree. Yeah, because that Pluto in Aquarius that's going to come March 23rd. I feel like there's going to be two sides to it. Like a lot of people are going to want progress. This really reminds me of like 1968, even though Pluto was in Virgo around then. But like, let's have progress, let's have peace. And technology is also going to play a piece in that as well. So there might be some people who have good intentions who think that the use of technology tracking and the transhumanism, I'm not talking about the people who are creating it, the elite people, but I'm talking about other people who are just in society are thinking that's going to somehow help these geopolitical issues that are going to come up, especially with the environment, because when Jupiter goes into Taurus, May 16th, it will square Pluto in Aquarius right away. So what is Taurus? It's our natural world. Squaring that Pluto in Aquarius right away, there's going to be, well, we can just do this. And I'm not completely certain what that is, but I do see around that time, and I wrote this down, what I channeled, there's going to be some kind of fighting back about this land is mine, this money is mine. And it's going to be in multiple different countries. I'm feeling like India, Middle East, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we were talking about like Latin American revolutions. It reminds me of the Spanish word autogolpe, which means self-coup, where the establishment uses like the normal mechanisms in place to overturn the elections, like for example, like voting. And we've seen potentially that here in the United States with the last 2020 election. There was some weird stuff going on. We're seeing that now in the Arizona election, where Carrie Lake and her team, they found like 300,000 unaccounted for votes, and that's getting sent to court. So we're seeing like literally potentially a literal coup in the United States by the Democratic establishment. And my guess beyond 2023, in 2024, I believe that they're going to try to rig the elections again.
Of course.
But this time, I think more people are going to be aware of it, and more people are just going to be fed up with it. And I think people are going to see it, and then we'll like be looking around like, wait, we can actually like do something about this now because there's enough of us. And I think it's going to be like crazy.
It is.
I'm not saying civil war, but like something similar.
Especially with Pluto and Aquarius. Especially because I just feel civil unrest. That's why I was saying, like, I got to look at the transits in 1968 because I know Pluto was not an Aquarius. I know that, but there's something very 1968-ish about the mid 2020s to me.
Yeah.
You feel that too? Like
right.
There's going to be a lot of just uprisings about this rights, that rights, and this group and that group.
Well, I just like how you're looking at things, and because you recognize that like certain patterns occur in time, and that's something I've been researching recently. It's called isometric analysis, where you look at certain predictable time periods having patterns and occurring again and again. A perfect example of this is go on Google and look up our most recent pandemic to the Spanish flu. That was a period of 100 years. Then subtract another 100 years, you'll see another pandemic occurred in 1820, then another one in 1720, another very specific special pandemic in 1620. Yeah, I traced this all the way back to 1220, and I just got fed up. I'm like, this is ridiculous, and I just stopped.
Every 100 years on the 20.
Yes, we have some sort of global pandemic, and that's just a little tiny example of this isometric analysis that I'm discussing right now.
Wow. Yeah. And we were talking about it before you hit the live button about how we both feel like this period is very reminiscent of, when Carter was in office in, the late 70s, early 80s, especially with like, the inflation and the gas prices, and the gas prices are not so bad at this moment. Who knows what's going to happen. But I do feel like you said, the pendulum's going to swing, and we're going to have someone very Reagan-esque in office. I mean, who knows how they're going to get there? That's going to be the interesting part. That's going to be the chaotic part. And I'm feeling like the people are going to want DeSantis. I feel that. It's not just my wishful thinking. Like, I feel intuitively that people are just like, we're talking about this. It doesn't matter how they're aligned politically. They just want their money back in order. They want their, like, I don't care about whatever, about like you're talking about the wokeism is going down because things are getting more to the center anyway with that stuff. Just
Yes.
people want their money
Let
back.
me tie into what you're saying with something even more far out there. I'm going to bring up numerology right now.
Okay.
Because I mean, there was this one guy I've been listening to on YouTube, and he had me convinced. He used like Chinese zodiacs and numerology to predict like the Cavs playoffs. He's like a multimillionaire because he makes a bunch of money.
Just the Cleveland Cavaliers, that's all he predicts, and he makes
Well, no, he predicted a bunch of them, but that was a really difficult one to predict because they were down 3-1 in the playoffs and then came back. No one saw that coming except him.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
You gotta send me his info.
So I'm like, all right, maybe there's something to Chinese zodiacs and numerology. So 2023, that is a 7-year in numerology. That's the number of the genius. That's the number of like individualism, like heightened self-awareness, spiritual development, intuition. And I feel like that's going to sort of like encapsulate the energy of 2023 of people realizing like, wait, I can actually trust myself to understand what's going on. I don't need to outsource my opinions to any authority. And I feel like more and more people will be waking up to that. I'm not saying it'll be like everyone or even the majority, but it'll be like a lot of new awakening people. And
I completely agree. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And 2023 is a 7-year, which is also like connected to the moon, which is emotional. And it's a water. 2023 is a water rabbit year. And the water, of course, is emotional too. So I see a lot of emotions. But the interesting thing is the rabbit is also known for being very calm. So I don't see it being like a chaotic emotion. I see it being a very like righteous and focused emotion. Like, all right, I'm going to self-improve myself, or I'm going to go after this certain injustice that I feel is happening. Like, that's what I'm really getting out of this year.
You know what? I love that you said all that because the rabbit is also very productive, right?
Yes,
it's productive in many ways, very fertile. What is the moon representative of? The mother, right? Because the moon is the chariot card, Cancer. You're a Cancer.
Yes.
So it's all about what? It's all about production. People are going to be very productive and moving forward with their ideas. And with that in Jupiter and Taurus, that's all about what it's about creating your own reality and from the ground up, from natural resources, from your natural talents. So I really feel like you're right. People are going to be in their own flow. And I'm going to say, dare I say, femininity, masculine, more in
girl power.
Yeah. They don't have to push as much, right? Because I feel like this year was a struggle bus for a lot of people. And why was that? It was those eclipses with that Scorpio and Taurus that really fucked a lot of us up. And that 6th year was all about us saying, okay, what is my inner harmony? What's my harmony about? And that Gemini energy, which is that mercurial energy, left a lot of people in their heads. So now that we've worked a lot of that out, it's like, how do we live in our heart space in stability and in flow, which is feminine. That doesn't mean that if you're a man, that makes you any less of a man to live in your heart space and in flow. But just protect, because the moon is very protective. The chariot's very protective. Cancerian energy, you know this, Brett, the crab is very protective. Yes. So it's not necessarily, I'm just going to say pussy energy at all.
See, it's messed up because this numbers guy, he was like going through like how our birth date is really important. Like if you're born the 1st and 2nd, he's like the 1st, that's the number of masculinity. I'm born July 2nd. And he's like, the 2nd, that's the number of femininity. They're kind of like betas. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, no. Like, I don't think I'm a beta, definitely. But what I'm trying to say is I feel like a decent amount of feminine energy, which I'm trying to like, sometimes I try to get away from because it needs to be a balance,
Yeah, we all need to be in balance. We all need to be in balance, like not let our masculine overtake us or feminine overtake us. So yeah, because when the masculine overtakes, then we're just pushing forward sometimes without seeing what's around us. And then if we're too much in our feminine, then we're not helping ourselves, right? We're not taking initiative. So Anyways, back to what you were talking about. When you mentioned July, I wanted to bring this up. So two things in July. July 17th, the nodes, the North Node will go into Aries, South Node in Libra. So this is where we're going to get into a lot of individualism. That's what Aries is about, individualism. And that's what we're talking about the Chariot moving forward. With that South Node in Libra, it's more about getting away from those codependencies that, keep us from making progress, right? Because if you think about that Chariot card, for those of you who know Tarot is not evil. Come talk to me, watch my videos, and I'll explain why it's not evil. It's not channeling the devil. There's some I don't want to even get into it. But if you want to channel the devil with anything, you can do that, right? It's all about what you channel when you work with anything. Anyways, I digress. But I'm thinking about it this way. When you look at the Chariot card, he's in his chariot. Certain people can't come with you in that chariot, just like in your car. Certain people can come with you along for the ride. So I feel like that's really going to be the theme of the second half of the year. But when Leo season happens on the 22nd, speaking numerology, what's 22? It's about relationships. Venus will retrograde in Leo. Venus is all about relationships. Leo is about our childhood, okay? Like your adolescence. And I think you have your Venus in Leo, right? I remember people's charts.
I think I do. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I remember people's charts. I don't remember other things. It's just, my astrology.
Right.
So I do see some people going through some breakups around that time of year, and leaving their significant others for some childhood sweethearts. So some people are going to go back to their first loves in the summertime. I know that's not geopolitical, but I just thought I should add that in.
For the girls watching, they're like, "Oh, my first love."
Yeah, go find them on Facebook first and see if that picture is racist.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like trying to think what else I thought of for 2023. Like, it's the year of the rabbit, like we said, and the year of the rabbit is known for diplomacy. So I feel like this could also maybe be a good year for people across the aisle to come together and see other people's perspectives.
I feel that.
Yeah, and the rabbit is like kind of like, I don't want to say manipulative, but it's kind of like cunning with like how it's able to get people to see their point of view.
It's
so like that's an energy we can tap into. But what?
It's mercurial.
Yeah. Yeah, communicate. Yeah, it's good at communicating.
Yeah. Yeah, because Mercury will be in retrograde at the beginning of this year and the end of this year at 8 degrees Capricorn. And when I looked up what that meant, specifically 8 degrees, that is a mercurial degree. So it's all about kind of that trickster energy, like you said.
Yeah.
It's sorcery, like making one thing look like another, kind of manipulating each other to come to the middle. Like, I'll just put some of this in the omnibus bill and we'll take a little bit out of that. And that's what
and I'm starting to like understand concepts of like getting people to, I think, understand your point of view. Like the masses, they don't care about like facts and figures. They seem to just like respond to power. And I feel like if enough people are like, okay, I'm sick of this, I'm just going to speak my mind and show fearlessness, that's how we bring the public consciousness over to another paradigm shift. It's not by like, oh, I'm going to be all intellectual and logically break down their argument. Like that doesn't work, guys. It doesn't. You have to like show fearlessness and be like, I know I'm right. Bam.
Like that's why people like Trump so much. That's why people like Trump so much, because he appealed to their emotion. Instead of necessarily like the logical intellectual side. And, if you think about anything in mass media, it's all about the emotion. It's all about that. So, as we were talking about this, I think before we started filming too, I really feel like he's on his way out, Trump. And that will also bring the sides together, because I feel like he was a massive part of why.
Yeah. So one thing I want to say that will maybe sound out there is Trump is a year of the dog and 2024 is a year of the dragon. Dogs and dragons do not get along. That's a difficult year for dogs. So let's say Trump did step into office 2024, he would have a bad year.
I
It's
have heard.
just the stars are not aligning for Trump. We see him in recent speeches. He does not have the energy that he had in 2016. And that's
Well,
what we need to like fight back against the establishment.
yeah, Mars is retrograding on his sun right now too. So he's out of steam. He's out of
Yeah.
steam. And he had his moment and it's okay.
Yeah, like I give him props for being a trailblazer, like clearing the way. He's done so much good, but I think his time is like pretty much done.
Yeah.
That's
And
not to bash on the dude. Honestly, it's not.
yeah, I hope he doesn't push it because if you look back in history, remember Teddy Roosevelt and was it Taft and Roosevelt, and then you got Wilson.
Mhm.
And I don't think that would be Biden. I don't know, but we can talk about that in a year or so. We can figure that out.
Yes.
Anyways, so and other things in terms of like geopolitical incidents, watch out for October 10th through the 12th. So Pluto's going to go back direct in Aquarius, and then Mars will enter Scorpio. So I feel like people will be a little more temperamental in general because Mars is at home in Scorpio. Pluto direct means anything that people were holding back from transformation, it's going to be, and I'm just saying balls to the wall. It's going to be boom, like fireworks, TNT explosion. So something around that time a year is going to happen. Also, those are two fixed signs, Aquarius and Scorpio, very stubborn.
Mhm.
So some stuff going on there as well.
Interesting. We'll have to look back at this live stream and see how accurate we are.
I know, right?
And yeah, like I said in my 2023 prediction video, I think a lot more people are going to be realizing what's going on because enough time has passed since the pandemic where we can look at it more objectively instead of people being all emotional. And that goes for everybody. So I think that's going to be, again, another factor in a lot of people waking up.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of people who were so radical on the left about this stuff. They're coming back to center, and even some of the most liberal figureheads, like I don't know if you saw this, but Tim Robbins is now apologizing for some of his tweets.
I've seen a lot of people apologize.
Yeah. And that's good. It takes humility.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of everyone. And I think 2023 is going to be a lot of forgiveness. We have to open our hearts to forgiveness and keep progressing forward, like we're talking about. Not be stuck in what happened in 2020, because that was a very difficult moment. And being stuck in that moment is not healthy because the world's going to keep moving regardless. But watch for China, watch for Iran, watch for the whole Mideast. If that Iranian revolution starts really going south, watch for the whole Mideast. So
yeah, I have not looked too deeply into the Iran revolution, and I can't tell if it's a color revolution or not. A color revolution meaning like an outside source is like artificially creating the revolution, just like the United States did with the Iran Contra in the 1950s. So I don't know what's going on over there, but that's another example of like the energy of revolution is in the air right now.
Yeah. I got to ask you before we go, what do you think's going on with the JFK papers?
I mean, it's really damning evidence against the CIA, like they were involved and responsible, but I don't think it's enough to make anyone who's asleep right now really care. It's just not, because it doesn't directly affect them. What will wake them up is something that directly affects them, like their voting or the pandemic. It has to be something like that for it to really be a paradigm shift. Right now, they're just throwing like treats for the conspiracy theorists with the JFK papers. Nobody else cares. They don't, which is crazy to me, but still.
Yeah, I know. It's very interesting to see what will come out of it. I had a thought, but it went away very quickly. Probably if it went away, that means it's supposed to come out another time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just wild seeing like Fox News report on it. Be like, wow, the CIA was responsible for assassinating our president. And that's a mainstream news.
Well, I mean, Oliver Stone made a movie about this and like, was it 91? Have you seen
Oh, he
it?
did? No.
Yeah. Okay. That's what you're gonna do this weekend.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, people are giving me so much homework since I like released that Illuminati video. Like our mutual friend, like Fishtail on Instagram's like, you got to see all these videos now too. They're all like 2 hours long. Like,
There's
yeah.
no end to it. It's a
Which
bottomless
I
pit.
will watch. And it's like you send me this stuff and it's like, I'm gonna watch it, but this is gonna be so much of my time, you
I
know?
know. I did notice that you did watch the Whitney Webb thing I did tell you about. So I was like, oh, he watched it. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I know. No, I want to get her book, but I feel like she kind of like encapsulated it on his show. But yeah, the JFK movie is like 4 hours long. So you have to really like, it's an Oliver Stone movie, but it's incredible. It's like he put it right out there in the early 90s, and I mean, it's most likely really what happened to JFK.
Hmm.
But I hear 2025 that might come out. I don't know why I just heard that in my mind. 2025, Uranus will be in Gemini in 2025.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about that real quick?
Well, I've mentioned 2025 a lot. I think it's just going to be an important year because that'll be like after the 2024 elections blow over. And I think the country will look very different at that point in time. I think enough time will pass where the economy will really change by then as well. I just think that 2025 to 2026, the country will look very different from what it looks like right now.
I think so too. And part of it is that every time, you guys can look this up if you want, every time Uranus is in Gemini, there's a massive scaled world war every time. So that's not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun. And just like you said, we need those cycles. We need them because we've lived in our parents too lived in this relatively peaceful world. And yeah, of course we live in North America where, we're not being shelled or whatever. We're subject to, starvation and the elements. But this is going to be something different. And I mean, do I want it to happen? Do I want to be right? No. But am I probably right? And so are 99% of other astrologers who are saying this. Yeah.
Yeah. And the person who got me onto isometric analysis is a content creator called Archaics. And he's a really knowledgeable historian. And he's able to just bring up all these examples of like patterns that occur throughout our history. And he's discovered something that he coins the Phoenix event. And he says the big one is going to be in May 2040. Actually, where like it's going to look like apocalyptic worldwide. And I know this sounds like maybe you shouldn't be looking into people who say things like that, but he makes a compelling case. And where was I going with this? Yeah, he was saying that these cataclysms are necessary because there's certain like dark elements that really take root into our world, and they need some protocols, as he calls them, disguised as cataclysms to reset things. So like as the Bible says, the meek shall once again inherit the earth.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, people are afraid of these cataclysms, but like look at them very positively because they're necessary to just really like, reset things from the elite.
That sounds like Pluto. Pluto in astrology is all about transformation. It's all about, you got to have this forest fire. You got to clear everything out to rebuild once again. And I want to say build back better. Oh shit.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Okay, Biden. Yeah.
Yeah, start from scratch. From scratch.
Yeah, so build back better really seems like the Freemasons idea of like order out of chaos. Like, I'm like, is that like an ode to like some sort of Masonic thing where Biden said that build back better? Like the Twin Towers where they destroy them and to start something else again,
But it's like almost, but that's artificial, right? That's artificial cataclysm instead of natural cataclysm.
Yes.
And that's like the demonic dark forces that feel like they have to intervene and control.
Yeah, and maybe that's why, we saw Event 201, where Bill Gates got together with everyone saying like, oh, a pandemic is probably going to be happening. They knew because maybe they know about the cycles that occur. Like what I said earlier, how every 100 years there's a major pandemic. So it's like maybe they didn't even artificially release Corona, either what.
We
Yeah, it's
don't
just a
know.
normal cycle.
And that's the cool thing, that we're able to have this conversation and be like, it is possible, it's possible this, it's possible that, and not make any definitive statements.
Right.
And keep our minds open. There's so few people, and this, this is true. Like, there's so few people who are saying like, maybe this happened, maybe that happened, not this happened. I know.
Yeah, because they want an answer. It's like the whole like flat earth, round earth thing. Well, it's like, oh, if it's not round, then it has to be flat. It's like, no, well, if it's not flat, it has to be round. It's like it could be anything. Like it's probably a simulation,
Well, there's so much to it that we don't understand as humans. There's so much we don't understand that's unseeable and unknowable and theoretical. Most mathematics is theory, right? Mm-hmm. So in that case, then how do we know how things are really shaped? It could be a different shape that we're not even completely clear of, that we can conceptualize as humans.
Or the matrix itself contorts to the belief system that the viewer already has. Like if you go out and you want to find flat earth truth, like you'll find it. If you want to find like mainstream astronomy ideas, you'll find that too. Like this matrix will provide for you the info that you already believe if you already draw your conclusion.
I have a weird question for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes do you think of something and you don't search it up and you don't even say it out loud, and all of a sudden it's on your phone?
Yeah. I see that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we have no idea how advanced like this algorithmic technology is. And it's like Jeffrey Epstein actually funded research to understand why people like subconsciously turn around when someone's staring at them, because that is a real phenomenon that science has verified. So like there is an ability to tap inside, I think, to someone's mind and sort of read their thoughts. They actually had a 60 Minutes on that, where they gave someone a brain scan and they're like, all right, think of a hammer. And then this certain area of their brain lit up and they're like, all right, that's where you store the picture of a hammer in your brain. And by asking them all these like just random questions and then doing a brain scan, they were able to then read the person's mind.
I believe it.
That's on 60 Minutes.
Yes. Well, I mean, they're going to show, okay, so this is what I tell a lot of clients and my students. So for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to shamelessly plug myself real quick. I teach astrology classes, tarot classes, psychic clairvoyance classes on the Mystic Arts. Okay, it's themysticarts.org. And you can find me on that website. You can book through that website or go through sarahashleyAstrology.com to book a reading with me. So I had this student ask me this question, like, I don't understand if these elites, right, the cabal elites, not, I'm sure there's some people who are in charge who are very beautiful people inside and out. If they use the astrology and the tarot and, their third eyes and, psychic intuition, all this stuff, clairvoyance, then how do I know that I'm not using it for the same purposes as them? Right. And so what I told her, and sometimes him, depends on who asked me, what they do is that they hire the best of the best, or at least they try to hire the best of this, astrologers, tarot readers, psychic intuitives. They have access to all of this. Okay. And what they release to the public is what they want the public to see. Why do you think that the Catholic Church, the Pope just spoke out against astrology a couple of weeks ago in a sermon? It's because they don't want the public, the minions, to have access to this. They only want the access to this.
Yeah, isn't that funny how the Pope supports gay marriage but not astrology? Like, it's so ridiculous.
Well, it makes no sense. What are you talking about?
But yeah, but like you said, it reminds me of that saying, like, millionaires don't practice astrology, billionaires do. Mm-hmm. Like the elite really are interested in this stuff. Like the numbers guy who I mentioned earlier with the numerology, a lot of his clients are billionaires. Like they do pay him lots of money to give it readings.
Wow.
Yeah. And like, I think, yeah, Kanye West, he used to be a billionaire, and I've seen signs that he's into like the occult and numerology and stuff like that too.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Robert Downey Jr. is. That's how he, and Taylor told me this story, and I wasn't aware of this. You know how, like, do you remember when Robert Downey Jr. was like a drug addict and he was in and out of jail? Do you remember this? Like how he
Yeah.
fell from grace and he had this problem. So they wouldn't insure him like for Hollywood movies because he was uninsurable, because he would just like walk into people's houses, kind of like the chicken guy, I think what Tyson chicken guy, you know what I'm talking about? And just like fall asleep in people's beds and stuff like that. Anyway, so they're like, we don't want you here, even though you're fully rehabilitated, blah, blah, blah. So he used occult spirituality to spell himself back into Hollywood. And do I think that's bad? No, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know him personally, but there's things you can do if you work with the pureness of the divine to push yourself into a better space. Now there's black magic, and that stuff boomerangs back on you like a ton of bricks. And anybody who comes to me with any of that nonsense, I'm like, get out of here. You couldn't pay me enough to work with that. You couldn't pay me enough because your soul is eternally damned. And I'm not even kidding when I say that. It is very, very fucking dangerous. But they have access. People with money have access to the best of the best. They really do.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? God, I was gonna say something, but then I was like so tuned into what you were saying.
It's okay. Yeah. I noticed when I was watching this clip the other day of him and Joe Rogan, RDJ, Robert Downey Jr. He's wearing jade. He was wearing jade with some other crystal. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, you know, he's attracting abundance. He's attracting it.
Oh, yeah. What I was going to say is like, well, yeah, like you were saying, simulation theory has really taught me that this is real. Like if you just imagine something and then you do a physical follow through, the simulation will facilitate that. It will facilitate what you imagine, because we are directly connected through our central nervous system into the simulacrum, or which is an older word for simulation, which I like to use.
Yes.
Like we are very connected with the environment around us.
Yes.
And it responds. It doesn't respond to what we want. It responds to what we are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because when you start embodying what you want, right, then it becomes what you are. So when you started your business, your tree business, I'm sure it wasn't successful on day one. But if you said, I will, and I am going to have a successful business, you start embodying that energy of having a successful business. Mm-hmm. And then it happens. It just happens.
Yeah, and it just takes time.
You have the skill too. You had the skill. Yeah, it does take time. It's not overnight. Mm-hmm. And anyone who thinks that that's dark, it's not dark. Now, there's ways to utilize that are dark that I'm not going to talk about here, because I don't want anyone who's watching this who might not be completely sane, I'll say that, to do that. But definitely, like, the universe does respond. It does respond, and we all are very connected with each other. So what they showed in that 60 minutes, and they're trying to scientifically prove it, it's absolutely real. And I'm sure there's more scientific proof that's being hidden from the public.
Yeah. And like you said, this stuff isn't dark, because I believe God wants us to live our best life and our most truest versions of ourselves.
Me too.
And that's how we do it in this simulacrum.
Yes. It's so cool. I love how you talk about that simulacrum.
Right. Yeah, that's like an ancient word. Like this simulation theory is no new concept. Like the Vedics had the word Maya for it. They call it Maya, which is the same thing.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you believe, okay, because I gotta go soon, but I gotta ask. So I know you've been talking about the reincarnation theory, the soul trap. So with dreams, is that real, or is that part of the simulacrum? Is that part of the soul trap?
The simulacrum is everything. It's the entire holographic universe. And that includes like going all the way to Pluto. And that includes the astral realm. That includes the spirit realm here. It's everything. So but we come from the real world, which is like outside of all of that, in my opinion.
You mean like real matter? Like,
Yes, and the reason we incarnate here is because you can't develop unless you have a fear of death, and we are immortals. So that's the reason we incarnate. And my opinion of like the reincarnation soul trap has slightly shifted, because at first I'm like, oh, we were definitely tricked to come here. I think that we volunteered to come here initially, and then the simulacrum was hijacked by a sort of like demiurgic entity, and it sort of locked down the holography here. But it's not a real threat because we're immortal, and we live in a certain simulation that has a specific end date. And when the simulacrum is shut down, that's when our souls inevitably leave and return home. So we're not just trapped here. And all these people that come up to me since I've been releasing soul trap videos of like, well, how do I escape? You bring this up, but you don't tell me how to get out of it. And it's like, you're going to inevitably get out of it. You're immortal. And that one day this simulation will end, because this simulation has a finite end date, unlike you who are immortal.
Yes. 100%. And I know we were talking about this before we started filming too. It's like a lot of people come to me for the same reason about the solar flash. Like when am I just going to go, bye and the solar flash and I can become a crystalline being? It's like, well, you have to perfect your earthly life first.
Before it's like, you want to know how to escape, just like be in your highest vibration. And then the dark forces here won't be messing with you, so then you'll be in a better position to like move forward and progress through your spiritual journey.
Exactly. Enjoy your life and be your best self. Stop being so hard on yourself.
And they act like, have you ever seen that like SpongeBob episode where he's like, turn 2 steps to the left and spin around? They think that there's like a certain like list of things you have to do to escape the soul trap. It's like, no, like there's not going to be some list of instructions like baking a cake.
No, exactly. And our God wouldn't do that to us. God, universe, source, creator, whatever you want to call it. They almost assign like a trickster energy to the divine creator. And that's not the divine creator. That's the opposite. So don't fall into that vibration, guys. Please don't. It's not good. Not good. Anyways, I gotta go. My daughter's gonna be home in 20 minutes. So thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for coming on. This is awesome. I'm sure we'll talk soon. And I'll see you later.
Great. Thanks, Brett. Take care.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.